Hello everyone, Thomas Fleming here again. Well, this is my last day here in the park. Tomorrow we have a moving day as we move back to Georgia. I've had a fun time here, but I'm a little disappointed that they don't have enough attractions to see. I love exploring, and they really just didn't have enough here, so don't know that I recommend the area. In any case, we're going to continue on with our study, and we're going to look at what is going on right now in the world. We see all these things happening, but what's going on? Why are these things happening? Well, I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you've gone to like a music concert or a theater concert, there are worker bees running around setting things up. So when the act shows up, everything's ready. If you're doing a theater play, you've got a theater, the building is already built, but they've got to get in and set up all the props. They've got to build things that aren't there. They're going to be in a living room scene in the play. They got to have the furniture in there. Some of it they may have backstage, some of it they may have to go pick up or build. Sometimes they got to build flats. A flat is just basically a fake wall that can be moved in and out when they need to. So they got to get all this ready. Same thing with the concert. If you go see, Paul McCartney or Eagles or one of the bigger groups, before they arrive, half a dozen or more semi-trucks show up. They've got all the things that they need. Now they may be building, an enormous stage presence, metal works that they put together to hang lights on and speakers and things. They got to build all that stuff. That stuff isn't there set up, and they just move in and do it because each band wants to have their own flair, if you will. So it takes time. If you're going to do it right, it takes time to do it right. So they arrive maybe 2 or 3 days or more before the venue. And then the artist and his group will show up, and they will do, and the same thing on a play, they will do essentially a dress rehearsal. They will practice, make sure that everything works, sounds good. Can the person in the last row hear? All these little details that they have to manage. And that's what's going on in the world right now. Everything is being prepared, it's being set up. The harlot is configuring the world for the Antichrist. Now, she thinks she's configuring it for her, but in reality, she's configuring the world for the Antichrist. And they're kind of working together right now because he's not really the Antichrist yet. He has to die. But they're working together to configure the world. Sometime in the future, the Antichrist will destroy the harlot and take over completely because he doesn't want to share his earthly throne. But we're not there yet. So they're getting things ready. And the same thing goes for things in the future. There's going to be things getting ready for God. We have the 7-year time period, which we can read about in Daniel. Daniel 9:27. Let's turn to there quickly. This will be referring to the arrival of the white horse, seal number 1. We'll get to that in a second. And he will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. A week, Heptat. This is our 7-year tribulation, as it's been coined. Technically, nothing calls the first half tribulation. It's the second half. It's called the Great Tribulation. But we've all lumped it all together, so we'll refer to it that way. He shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering in the middle. Well, we're not even to the beginning yet. But these are the things Daniel is telling us are going to happen. On the wing of abomination shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. So him defiling, the Antichrist defiling the temple, basically starts the second half of the tribulation, which includes the wrath of God. So let's turn to Revelation 6 and see kind of what the beginning is. This is the setup during the tribulation to God. We're in the setup to the tribulation, but once the tribulation starts, then this is the setup of God. The seals are not God. The seals are man's doing. The harlot's, involved in all the things that are going wrong. The fact that people are going to be dying. This is man's doing. God doesn't step in and tell the bowl judgments that the seals and the trumpets, they're gradually going to get worse, but they're man's doing. So let's look at the first Revelation 6, verse 1. Now I saw when the Lamb, before I read into that, I like reading the last few verses of Revelation 5, because they speak to God and what's happening here. I'm going to go back to 11. Then I looked and I heard a voice of many angels around the throne, the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them were 10,000 times 10,000, and thousands, saying with a loud voice. That's a lot of people. I should have brought my light down here. I thought I had enough light to have this thing not go back and forth. Oh well, sorry about that. I'll bring it next time. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. Worthy is Jesus. John is seeing the throne of God, and he's seeing Jesus. And every creature which is in heaven and earth and under the earth, and such that are in the sea, and all that are in them, I heard saying. That's pretty much every living creature everywhere. Blessing and honor and glory and power be to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb forever and ever. The world knows who God and who Jesus are. Okay, so now we're in the first seal. Now I saw when the Lamb, the only one worthy to open the seal, saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard the four living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given to him. So the Antichrist, when he comes forward, they will give him a crown. He doesn't have a crown naturally. They will give one to him. And he went out conquering and to conquer. Now he had a bow, but it doesn't say he has arrows. He doesn't have to destroy to conquer. He just has to get his will. So let's look at the second seal. When he opened the second seal, I heard a second living creature saying, "Come and see." Another horse, a fiery one, a red one, went out. And it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword. Okay, here's the killing. The white horse, even though he had a bow, was conquering without war. This second rider, he's killing with war. We have a World War III setting up right now. We're not there yet. I think all this big stuff is really pushed into the tribulation, so we shouldn't worry about it. Because the Antichrist, which is the white horse, we may see him going, but we're not going to deal with him. We're the restrainer. So there's going to be many people killed during this war in the second seal. Again, gradually getting worse. Everything is setting up for it. You see the wars and rumors of wars right now all around the world. Jesus talks about this, so don't worry about it. It's just setup. People moving stuff around. You might get rolled over by a dolly, but you're not going to be killed in a war that's being set up. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature saying, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard the voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, but do not harm the oil and the wine." Who's trying to take over energy in in Europe, Middle East right now? We may be seeing Magog coming in there for that. So it's going to be a rough time. We don't want to be here. But this is not going to wake these are gradual, but it's not going to really wake the world yet. They're going to fight this. Satan and his followers. And there may be some that are willfully following. There may be some that are blindly following. It doesn't matter. They're still following. This isn't going to wake them up yet. They're not going to like it. But this kind of stuff's going on all the time. We can easily see in our current situation where we could be paying that much. Inflation's still on the rise. Our government is still deliberately creating situations to make inflation worse. They're going to put in their digital dollar. It's as plain as anybody can see. They haven't fully done it yet, but it's part of the setup. And a denarius is a day's wage. So a day's wage to basically make a loaf of bread. That's how much the wheat or the barley would be. Okay, now it's going to start getting a little bit tough. And this is still all man. This is man's doing. This isn't God. This is God keeping his hands off because man doesn't want him around. So this is man's work, with God just sitting back watching because he can't come in and help. God does not force his will on anybody. Christians are Christians because they got to a low point in their life that they called on God to help. So this is creating a world full of low points. Let's look at the fourth seal. When he opened the fourth seal, I heard a voice of the fourth living creature saying, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of him that sat on it was Death. And Hades followed him, and the power was given to him to kill a fourth of the earth, to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. 1/4. We have an 8 billion population. Now, if this is properly being read, that should be minus, potentially, 1 billion or more Christians, part of the rapture. But we don't know for sure when this timing is. But if the Christians are gone in the rapture, are we talking about the remaining? Some of this is not, I try to get into the details, but it's hard sometimes. People walking around, a lot of people in the camp are packing. I think this weekend is over for a lot of people. I'm not leaving today, but I'm leaving tomorrow, so I'll be part of that eventually to get out of here. Okay. But a fourth of, let's just say, 7 billion. If it was 8 billion, that'd be 2 billion people. So it's going to be a little less than that because we're taking 1 billion away from that population. That is a lot of people are going to be dying from war, and it says even the beasts of the earth. What are the beasts of the earth? That's a good question. Are we talking about lions and tigers and bears? Or are we talking about fleas carrying a plague? That's a beast. We don't know. It doesn't matter. Lots of people are going to die. Now we have the fifth seal, which is kind of a a little break from the bad stuff going on, but these people have a good question, and they've suffered. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they had. And they cried out in a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? We're told that the harlot is going to have the blood of saints on her. Now, is this all the people that have died during the tribulation? Or does that include people before? We don't really know exactly. I mean, we're in a time frame right now where around the world people are dying for their religion. In the United States, we're pretty safe, relatively. But in many countries, people are dying all the time because of their religion. It's literally a death penalty in a number of countries to be a Christian, to have a Bible. We've been lucky that we haven't had that problem here yet. And I say lucky, I don't mean that there's luck involved. It's just an axiom that basically means we're fortunate. Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer. The stage isn't set yet. Until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were is complete. There's still more martyrs to come. Okay, now the sixth seal is the big one here. These people still don't get it. We see all the time throughout Revelation where the earth is resisting, won't give in. It's going to fight back, fighting God because they want what's down here. They think this is all there is, and they're mad at God for taking it away. This is all going to be burned up. But they don't believe it. They believe Satan. They've believed the lie. And the only reason that they believe the lie is that they won't accept God. We read in a previous couple of videos, you have to accept God to find salvation. Without Jesus, there is no salvation. Okay, so I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake. We have earthquakes every day. In the 7s, maybe 8s occasionally. This one's big enough to be mentioned in the Bible. So I imagine it's going to be bigger than anything anyone has ever felt. And the sun became black as sackcloth, and the moon became like blood. Clouds in the sky. I don't know if you've ever been near a fire where it puts plumes of smoke in the air. And you look up and anything behind it, whether it's the sun or the moon, have a kind of a reddish glow to them because it's the sediments that are floating around give it that reddish tinge. And the stars from the heaven fell as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind. What these are, I don't know if these are meteors, asteroids, whatever they are, doesn't matter. This is to scare people. It's deliberately to scare people. It's like, look, you want this earth? Well, here's what the earth has to deliver for you. You still want it? Then the sky receded as a scroll. Not sure what that's going to be. That's got to be amazing. When it's rolled up, and every mountain and island were moved out of its place. Every mountain and island was moved out of its place. How can there be anybody left? This is God's love being expressed here. It's like, come on, people. You're missing the whole point. This is not our home. This is a training ground, if you will. And we're all going to go home, for those that accept Christ. We're all going home. If you don't accept Christ, you're on the boat, and the boat's going to keep going. Or the train's going to keep going. There's a cliff at the end. You can get off. I'm right here. It's free. They're going to fight. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come, who is able to stand. We're still not over. This is just the seals, and we have the seventh one coming. The bottom line, God is going to try to reach the world, but Satan's still around. And he's got his people everywhere, his demons everywhere, putting the pressure on to keep people from turning to God. But Satan can't stop this. This is essentially all of man's doing, of which Satan inspired. He wants man dead. He doesn't want God to have a created being other than himself. Now we're going to see the 144,000 in the next chapter, or in the next chapter. This is where they should have marked the chapters better. The seventh seal is actually in the next chapter. It should have been in the previous chapter. I talked about that in the past. The Archbishop of Canterbury created the chapters. And then later on, when they had the Gutenberg press, that's when they put the verse numbers in. They didn't have all that when this was first created. But the average person couldn't read. They weren't going to see this stuff. But God has given us a blueprint of what's coming. He's telling us how they're going to set up the world to go forward. The people of the world are going to fight this. Christians won't. We embrace it. We know what the purpose of it is. Life and death, literally, for eternity. God is willing to go to this much trouble to try to save the world. And in spite of all this, only a fraction, unfortunately a small fraction, are going to make it out. There will be a remnant that survives all this. They will go through the millennium. But mankind, even though God created us in his image, we can do good things. None good enough to get to heaven. The majority of man is going to reject God. And that's a sad epitaph. We are, of course, not what he actually created, because when Adam and Eve were first created, that's what God wanted. But now, in our fallen bodies, we can't make it back to that level. We can try, and that's what we're supposed to do. Try to get as close as we can back to that level. Jesus gave us an example. In fact, Jesus talked about this sixth seal. So I want you to see how to tie this in. Jesus talked about the things coming. And I'm in Matthew 24:29. I just want to quickly tie this in to see how Jesus was trying to reference this coming in the future. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, that's what you've got to see. We're at the end. So the sealed judgments start at the beginning, relatively, of the tribulation time frame and go all the way to the end. And we can see that in 7 if we look more to that. But right now, this is just pointing to this. This is Jesus talking. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light, or will be greatly dimmed, because we see the red moon. The stars will fall from the heaven, and the powers of the heaven will be shaken. Mighty earthquake. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all of those, the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. That's a completely different description than the rapture. He's coming silently to the clouds. Here he's coming back to the whole earth, and they will see him and realize their mistake. Too late. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. His elect. Jesus told us about what was coming here. He told us of what was coming in Revelation. This is all a warning to the world. Please, please, I beg you, please accept my Son and what he's doing for you to save your life. Without him, you are going to go into the pit of fire with Satan and the rest of his immediate followers, demons. God is pleading with the earth, and they still reject him. You see what ignorance and following the wrong leader will do? Be careful who you follow on this earth. Be careful what path you take. Now, if you're a Christian, you can still get off the path, but your destination is still going to stay the same. You cannot lose being a Christian. If you were truly a Christian, you can't lose it. Got a boat going in behind me. They're coming out, I guess. I don't know which way it was going. It's hard to tell. I don't want to turn around. There's a boat ramp back there, and it's busy during the day. This is my second noisiest sight. I don't want to live totally away from everybody, but I need the peace that passes understanding when I'm trying to deliver a message. I get so easily distracted. Squirrel. We can all get distracted. There are so many things happening right now while they're setting up. Don't get run over by that dolly. All this stuff is being set up right now, and we're being distracted. We're looking at it and going, oh my God, what's happening? Can I do something? Do I need to pray that all this stops? No. Pray that God's will be done, and you will cover anything. When you don't know what to pray, pray that God's will be done in a situation. If someone has a problem and they ask you to pray for them, should you pray to heal them if they're sick? You can, but the best thing to do is say, God, you know this situation. Please help them. Do what you can to help them. I pray that your will be done in this situation. Our daily guide. Our Father, which is in heaven, give us this day our daily bread, our basic needs. Take care of our needs. This is a daily prayer. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Forgive us our sins as we forgive. Use us as the example of how we're to help people. Treat us the way we treat others. Don't lead us into temptation. We're told that God never leads anybody into temptation, but deliver us from the evil or evil one. Deliver us from Satan. Keep us away from Satan. Keep Satan away from us. We are to constantly seek God in everything we do, and for His will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's a very simple, guided prayer. So when you don't know what to pray, pray anyway, but ask for God to intervene in the way that He would. And we have a loving God, so we know that whatever He does will be in a loving nature. Maybe the person's supposed to suffer. Paul couldn't get rid of the thorn in his side, but he also healed very many people. The lame walk, the blind could see. He heals too. He does both. It's all according to what is needed for both God and for that person. Believe, have faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. All right. I'm going to wrap this up for now. Tomorrow's a moving day. And then I'll be back to my familiar territory, where I have better internet. Something crawling on my leg. You get used to it when you live outside. But it's a distraction. You see how I had to look away? It wasn't a squirrel. Something smaller. Small things can be a distraction too. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless.